actually, the money, all the money should be there
Should,
because
right.
they would have funded it
Right, right.
through the video gaming. And they
Sure.
would have done it all at once.
So
funded
if
already.
a state budget is passed,
Right.
then this 14 million should be released immediately, correct?
Correct.
But that 14 million shouldn't be tied to our state budget.
The governor's budget had the amounts, the 17 million for the College Lake County Science Building and the 36 million for the Lakeshore project in the budget. So it's been there since FY10 and when Governor Quinn released the Build Illinois funds, that's where that money came.
Okay.
So we have a high level of confidence the money is sitting.
Luckily, it's been continued through every budget since FY10.
Controller told us it was there.
Yeah,
Right.
she said it was there.
So how much longer can we go before we need more money on this construction?
That's a great question. Go ahead.
And they'll cover that.
They're gonna cover that, but it's basically-
But quickly, September, October is my understanding. I know Michael and Dorothy will kind of correct me.
They'll give you the runway on that.
Okay, Dorothy.
All right. So next page.
That brings us to the bottom line, and this is where we have an original shortfall of $3.6 million. Compounding the state error, tilts us a little bit more to the negative. Now we're getting brought back up by the MAP grant and the 27% of the basic operating grant, which will then get us to about a $1.2 million deficit position for this year. And what we'd be requesting the board, either at the next month's meeting or in June, is to transfer $1.2 million from our restricted accounts, funds that we moved over there last year back to balance this out. We said we were going to go negative this year because of the extreme case, but as we'll show you in a slide a little bit later on, our rating agencies are looking at us right now. They're asking us what our plan's going to be in this area. I think we get a better chance of getting our AAA rating if we balance. So I'll be asking you for that permission. But if we don't balance, that's certainly not a wrong answer either. It's just that it'd be nice if we could balance ourselves out.
And you'll recall, that was that $3 million that was almost like a contingency that we set aside out of last year's fund balance, right? And we talked about it in the planning retreat, talked about it in the finance retreat. So this is what we would use those funds, yeah.
I think what Jean was trying to ask, if I understood her correctly, is we've already made some significant cuts in the budget, in our budget, to deal with what we saw was coming down the pike with all of the things that are going on with the state. So how is that reflected in where we are right now? How do those cuts show up if, when you're looking at that first graph,
Or even the slide 4 where it takes those numbers and puts them more in a table format, right?
This doesn't, in a way, show you that the projected amount that we're going to come out is less than the budgeted amount. And maybe, let's see if we can show you that a different way on the slides in
is
the
that what you were
future.
asking?
So
What happened to all those
there's a
cuts?
difference between the budgeted amount, which is higher, and then what we're actually expending. And that graph doesn't show that.
Okay, what I'm seeing is looking at
Yeah,
this.
I know. Hey,
And with this, we know that we have less money coming in, and we've known this all year because we haven't had a budget since July. So all we've been talking about is all this cost saving that we're doing, and I just don't see that we're really doing much in the way of cost saving, because I see that you've got this infusion of capital that's coming in from the state that we just found out about, the 2.2 million, but I would have expected that by 3/4 of the year that we would have had expenditures that it would have been less than budget, not expenditures that are on budget. When our revenues are so much below budget at this point, I would have thought by this time, with everything you've been telling us, that our expenditures would have been also cut back.
I don't think that chart captures fully the relationship between the budgeted amount and what we've done for the expenditures, but we'll double check it. But let me clarify one other point.
We're talking dollars. Dollars,
Yeah.
it says our expenses are 62.8 million. That's actual. And that 62.9 million was expected, or that would have been budgeted. So, that's dollars. And dollars I don't think lie. And I guess I'm wondering
Well,
why
let
the
me say it this
expenses
way.
are lower.
We would probably come in with about a $5 million surplus if we weren't missing the $6 million from the state, right, 1.2. So we would have come to you at this meeting and projected a large surplus. But let me say it another way. Keep in mind that when we cut those 20 positions, and the other cuts we're making and all that stuff is for FY17. Those will impact our development of the FY17 next year's budget, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so those cost savings go into building the budget for next year. We would, though, have had a good, healthy fund balance this year if it weren't for money left from the state. And actually, if we didn't have that contingency, we'd probably have had a deficit budget.
So in other words, what you're telling me is everything we've been talking about in terms of cost savings, they're not being realized in this current budget because we're still way out of whack.
Well, I mean, what were they telling us about cost savings? We
Next
laid
year.
off people
Yes, next year.
a month ago, which get laid off July 1st or whatever, and then that's when the realization starts
So
of the
it's
cutting.
next year.
Yeah.
Next
So in summary, Jean, your observation is correct.
Yeah.
There's been no cost cutting for this year as far as a cash flow.
No, it
Situation.
matches the budgeted amount.
So
And
yes,
when-
you're
And when
correct.
we've had 9 months of knowing that the state money wasn't coming in, I'm kind of surprised at this.
So let me say it another way, Gene, I think this may help. The actual budgeted expenditures for this year is, without the transfers we do to pay the bonds, is 95 million. 95 million. We project now to come in at the end of the year about 88 million because we have been watching our costs and we have been reducing them. So we would have had a fund balance. This chart just doesn't show it well. I'll get you a better chart that will indicate that. You know, we'll get you something so you can see it, the actual figures, if you like.
You know what, what you're saying,
there.
we got figures.
This needs to be accurate.
Yeah, we've got figures. They're either right or they're wrong, but we have dollar figures. And the dollar figures show that we have, you know, this is like 4 million shortfall there.
We've only saved 100,000, so that's.
All year.
That's
exactly
what it
right.
shows.
Yes, and
right.
and so my point from the beginning of saying, wait a minute, this chart causes me to have a second thought here and I need to ask about it, is because I'm thinking, really? That's all we've been able to do and everything else has been projected and for 2017? Well, maybe you're telling me that's all you were able to do. Okay, well, I guess that's it, but I will tell you that I find that troubling. That's all.
It's $100,000. You don't have to show us another chart. Is it 100,000 or not? That's what your number says.
Yeah.
So, but,
That's
you guys here saying she's disappointed and that's not more even for this year.
Noted.
So we haven't realized what we thought we might be saving based on the cutbacks that we've made. It won't happen until next year's fiscal year.
Which will then,
Right.
I mean, even next year's FY17, if you go to that last slide, to the last slide here, we're talking about taking money from the reserves. $1.2 million, we're taking money from the reserves. Well, if we don't realize more cost cutting, that number is going to be higher, and we're going to have fewer and fewer reserves to transfer into for the budget. So I think that, as we said last month, we should be more aggressive in trying to find more cost savings because that restricted account is going to be lower and lower, and our problems are going to be bigger and bigger. So we're going to have to figure out something. We can't keep smoothing this over.
Which is why I think we're recommending the earlier budget development work.
I think that's great. I
Yeah.
think that's a great idea.
Because if we're not on track, you guys can let us know. I mean, we won't have to wait till February when the ship's already sailed to
Yeah,
have
we
that
don't.
conversation.
We want to do it like last year.
Right.
We can go back and be a little bit more aggressive last year. But since we can't go back last year, that means we have to even be more aggressive going forward.
And I agree with Trustee Gotsch. It seems to me that, we've been at this for a number of months all year. I'm finding it awkward, strange that we're only we've only saved $100,000. That doesn't make sense to me.
Next slide is just some quick updates. We were monitoring other state legislation that could affect us. When we talked to the rating agencies, they were asking us about the pension cost shift bill and the freeze on the property taxes bill. So at this point, we're not aware of any of those bills passing, though I think I saw last week there was a property tax freeze bill that came out of one house. I think it was the House, actually. And then I was going to mention to the board that we've implemented the PeopleSoft Asset Management System, and we're in the process of implementing time and labor in the month of June. We're also completing an upgrade of the financial system. And then finally, Andy and I are working with our lawyers regarding our bond compliance and disclosure to make sure that the district stays in compliance with our reporting obligations. In terms of the Moody's topic, in March, Moody's Investors Services placed 19 community colleges on the state on watch for possible downgrade, including us. Moody's asked us if we were to provide them year-end financial projections, which is that slide that we just showed you. Do we show them a 0 or do we show them a negative 1.9? We'll be recommending to you let us show them a 0. We think that'll help. Also, they're asking for a plan for funding the science building. So at the May meeting, we'd like to be able to come back to you and give you several scenarios of what we can do about the science building to help answer the Moody's question. And in terms of the auxiliary funds,
We're going to give them the 0, back up a minute.
sure.
What's the 0 going to be?
That's transferring the OM funds.
We'll have the money.
Zero.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so you have the money, and the Moody's is going to continue to,
1.2.
to bring us on our ability to pay the bonds.
That'll be the hope. That'll be the hope.
Because we're not taking any more bonds up.
Right.
Right.
And the next section of this report, we've typically covered the auxiliary funds in this quarterly report. So here's the auxiliary funds. You can see they're pretty much on target with what was expected. And when we look at that in terms of revenues and expenses for the various programs, bookstore, food services, performing arts, and WPDI all seem to be doing a good job, covering their costs. Kind of new for this report, I just want to introduce this topic. I know we file a detailed report on the board members' website that lists all of the investments of the district by these various fund description categories. This is a summary of that detailed report that we post. As I look at that report, it does conform to Board Policy 703, which requires us to report on 4 elements. And I've asked our financial advisor, PMA, to also prepare a quarterly report that maybe includes more elements that maybe the board hasn't seen in the past. One example is this page right here, which is also going to be posted to the board's website so you can see more detailed analytical look at the district's investments across the various categories, which I believe is also in the spirit of Board Policy 703, so that we can look at yield relative to benchmarks, and we can look at the composition of our portfolio by assets. And the suggestion was maybe the board's May meeting, I can ask our financial advisor to come and help us present that report in a little bit more detail, so the board can get a good thorough review of what we're investing in and where and why and all that. So hopefully that'll be helpful going forward. And that brings us to the end. If there's any questions?
On the bond proceeds, the interest earned on the bonds?
Yeah. 600.
264,000, 265,000.
So that's $34.3 million of bond proceeds that are being invested at an effective rate of 0.005 with a projected annual interest of that amount there.
So all the investments overall, this is the first time you've seen this page, but the investments overall are around 600.
Right. But again, I think what's nice about PMA, they do a really good job of breaking out each one of these categories, how the funds are being invested, how do those investments align to state statute and board policy, and why they're in the right space for us in that area. But because we don't really see that detail from the reports that we're currently generating, I thought it'd be helpful to get a little bit more thorough report.
It's good.
Yeah.
And they also had some suggestions. I know Board Policy 703 asked for this. If there's any suggested revisions to the board's investment policy, this would be an opportunity for them to give us those recommendations. And I also think that there's recommendations in terms of the state statutes, where the state statutes limit governments in Illinois as to what they can invest in, and where other states allow. I think one example is corporate notes. We're currently prohibited from investing in corporate notes, but I know in other states like Florida or state of Washington, those governments allow their local districts to invest in that area. So I asked PMA, given these are kind of difficult times, if there's suggestions that they have, we'd love to hear them. So that could be the May meeting.
Should be good.
Okay. All right,
Good.
let's move on to the master plan then.
Any last questions for Kim, though?
Yeah.
So I think that was a good discussion, and I think we heard the message loud and clear.
Well,
Can
we
we,
realize you just came in too, so we realize you're new.
I'm not
would
gonna
it
accuse
be
you of
possible,
that,
when we do these, because we do these on a pretty regular,
though. Sorry, Barb.
we do these on a pretty regular basis, like this PowerPoint presentation. Do you want that included in our board packets so that we have time to review it prior to coming into the board meeting
Yes, ma'am.
as well? That'd be great, thank you. Or put it on the portal.
We'll do both. Who did in the report?
No waste paper, put it on the portal.
Open in the first, okay.
And
We
the
don't need to
report.
kill any more trees.
All right.